After the news that Joe Biden has suspended his candidacy for president and Kamala Harris as vice president is more likely than not going to be the Democratic nominee going up against Donald Trump, we have our first poll that actually takes into account Harris being the nominee. First poll released post the announcement. That is from Quinnipiac University. And what we find is a race between Trump and Harris is a very, very close race that is definitely going to go down to the wire. This, again, as I mentioned, this poll is by Quinnipiac, and it goes over that in this poll, Vice President Kamala Harris is facing Donald Trump. 49% of voters support Donald Trump. 47% support Kamala Harris, which is within the state, or in the polls, 2.8% margin of error. So it is a statistical dead heat, a statistical tie when you factor in the margin of error, but Trump is leading in this poll by 2 points. This poll was conducted between Friday, July 19th and Sunday, July 21st. The poll also does a few other different scenarios as well. In a six-way hypothetical race, including the other candidates, Trump has 45%, Harris is 41%, RFK Jr. gets 6%, and Green Party candidate Jill Stein gets 2%, Libertarian Chase Oliver gets 1%, and Cornel West gets 1% as well. Those are always tricky because usually third-party vote doesn't end up being as much on election day as it is in the polls, but of course we never really know what's going to happen until the election happens itself. Really no point in this now, but in a head-to-head matchup between Biden and Trump, Trump received 48% of the vote to Biden's 45%. So Trump leads Harris by 3 and Harris by 2 and Biden by 3. And so what's happening here? Well, first things first, the poll goes over Biden exiting the race. 62% of voters think Biden dropping out of the presidential race is the right thing to do. 27% don't think so. Democrats were 54 to 33% in favor of Biden dropping out, saying it's the right thing to do. Biden's job approval rating is currently sitting in a negative at 39% to 57%, meaning 39% of people approve of his job, 57% disapprove, which is not much of a change from back in Quinnipiac's poll from late June. And there's also a preference about the Democratic candidate, who people want to see. 45% of people in the poll said they wanted Kamala Harris. Gavin Newsom got 12%, Pete Buttigieg got 11%, Gretchen Whitmer got 7%, and Josh Shapiro and Andy Beshear both got 4%. Mark Kelly 3%, and so on and so forth. But really, there's not much to talk about there because it's Kamala Harris. She's going to be the Democratic nominee. Now we have favorability ratings actually for Donald Trump as well. Trump is found with 46% of favorable approval and 49% unfavorable, and net negative 3%. That's actually one of the best Trump has performed in polling in a long time. The highest favorability rating for Trump since the Quinnipiac University's first poll asked this question in May of 2015. This is the highest Trump has ever polled for Quinnipiac's poll. Definitely significant for Trump. Biden, as I mentioned, 38-57. Kamala Harris, a big problem for her. 37% of the poll, people see her as favorable. 51% is unfavorable. So when you look at Trump's approval rating at 46 to 49 and Harris's at 37 to 51, that is definitely a problem Harris is going to have to overcome. J.D. Vance is 29% favorable, 37% unfavorable. So he's negative 8% unfavorable, definitely not good, but also a lot of people who have not yet heard of him. Biden and Trump both have 2% not heard of. Kamala has 11. Vance, is 34, so definitely lots to do there. There's also the views of Trump in the wake of the assassination attempt. And they said 53% of voters say Trump's reaction has no impact on their view of him. 30% says it makes them think more favorably of him. 15% says it makes them think less favorably. So a decent percent of people say it makes them view Trump better, but over a close majority, but a majority of people say it doesn't have much of an impact. Among independents, 58% says it has no impact on how they view Trump. 30% says it makes him better. 11% less likely. And as for Trump's RNC speech, 49% say his speech had no impact on their view of him. 25% says more favorable. 20% says less favorable. And that's honestly, there's not really too much to gain away from here. This isn't like the main important part of the poll. There's nothing really too insightful from this. aside from the fact that the last part here about unity, Trump has been calling for unity in his RNC speech. 48% of people think Trump will increase division in the country if he wins. 42% thinks he'll increase unity. Actually, a pretty closer split than I was initially expecting, I'm not going to lie. But then it goes into J.D. Vance. 46% of voters think Trump's selection of J.D. Vance was a good choice. 33% think it's a bad choice. 21% did not offer an opinion. Going into Vance's low name ID and not as well known as Trump or Biden or any other candidates definitely is the effect there. Gonna just skip kind of all through this because we get to the Biden poll and stuff, but this is the part we really came here to watch. Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris. 49% for Donald Trump, 47% for Kamala Harris. Other Republicans, 93% for Trump, 4% for Harris. Democrats, 97% for Harris, 2% for Trump. Pretty much in line with what we're typically used to seeing. Independents in this poll, Trump gets 55%, Harris gets 41%. Of men voters, Trump gets 60%, Harris gets 37%. Women, Harris gets 56%, Trump gets 40%. White 4-year degree college, Trump's got 44%, Harris got 54%. No 4-year degree college and white is going to be 66% for Trump, 32% for Harris. So what's the takeaway here? Well, for one thing, it's a very, very close race. If this poll is accurate, it's a very, very close race between Trump and Harris. There's more metrics down here as well to look at in this head-to-head race. This is head-to-head Trump versus Harris, by the way. This isn't any of the third-party candidates factored in yet. That'll be down here in poll number 4. As you can see, Trump has actually a lead when it comes to 18 to 34. Trump is 58, Harris is 39, which is very interesting. Trump has 54, 44, 35, 49. Harris is leading 50 to 64, 53, 45. And 65 plus, Harris is 54, Trump's 43. It's kind of like an inverse of what you would expect from like 2016 or even 2020, which is very interesting. Trump overall is leading, white men in 66% to 32. Where white women, he's up 49 to 48. White overall, Trump is leading 57-40. Black overall, Harris is leading Trump 81-11. Hispanic, it's almost an exact tie. Harris has 52%, Trump has 46%. One of the closer columns we've seen. Harris has a narrow lead there, though. Factoring in third-party candidates now, Trump has 45%, Harris is 41%, R.F. Kennedy Jr. is 6%, and West has 1, Stein has 2, Oliver has 1. So from this poll, what to take away from this poll is, if you're asking who does RFK draw support from more, remember, in this two-way race, it was 49-47. So Harris goes down from 47 to 41. She loses 6% of her support. Trump goes down from 49 to 45. He loses 4% of his support. So both of them take a significant hit, but if this were to be consistent, RFK would barely, by about 1 to 2 percentage points, take more Democratic votes away from Harris than Republican votes away from Trump. But again, that could just be this one poll, but that's what this poll tells us. And again, we already kind of covered this quickly, but what is your opinion of Donald Trump? Favorable, unfavorable? 46-49. Favorable for Trump, -3 for him. Joe Biden, we're going to skip. RFK Jr., 23-45, favorable to unfavorable. Kamala Harris, 37-51, favorable to unfavorable. J.D. Vance, 29-37. And Joe Biden's job as presidency, even though he's not running anymore, Kamala Harris is, this is something the Trump campaign will definitely go after her on. And the rest of this is kind of just going over the stuff that we already kind of talked about. So that's going to be it for the poll itself. I just want to show this poll because this is the first instinct of it. It shows a very close 2-point race. And Donald Trump and J.D. Vance going up against Kamala Harris and her vice president to be, who she has not announced yet. I think the map starts out at 235 electoral votes, strong or leaning for Trump. Kamala Harris at 226, strong or leaning for her. I think the biggest takeaway right now is the race is going to be close. I don't think it's going to be necessarily a blowout that... I think Trump versus Biden was starting to become a blowout. I think Trump might have ended up winning in a blowout margin on Election Day. Trump versus Harris is going to be a much closer election, I think. And It's interesting to see in the coming days if polling reflects this or if polling continues to show Trump with a big lead. At least in this Quinnipiac poll right now, Trump's approval ratings are the highest they've been since they started doing these polls from Quinnipiac, and it's still a 2-point race. This is definitely going to be one to watch. But again, I'll just go really quickly. What are the potential candidates' pathways to victory? For Trump, I think the easiest one for him is to win Georgia and to get the Rust Belt state of Pennsylvania. That gets him to 270. All he has to do is flip 2 states from 2020 and he'll become president again. But let's say hypothetically, maybe Trump is not able to win Pennsylvania. He loses Pennsylvania. Say Kamala Harris picks Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. Trump can't win there. What's Trump's path then? Okay, well, I think Trump will still win Georgia, but now he has to start looking elsewhere. He could win the state of Arizona. If he could do that, then he just needs one of Wisconsin or Michigan to win. Or Trump could win Georgia, Michigan, and then win it by winning Nevada. It gets a little bit trickier. Trump's easiest pathway to winning, is winning Georgia and Pennsylvania. If Trump cannot win Michigan, well, then things get even more harder for him. Harris is at 260. She can win the election by winning Wisconsin. Harris can win the election by winning the state of Wisconsin. So I find it very hard to believe Trump can win without winning one of Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania. If he loses all 3, I think his chances of winning are pretty much gone. Unless Trump is able to somehow lose these 3 states, but Trump is able to flip a state like New Hampshire and then win Nevada and Arizona and Georgia. That would get Trump to 272, everything else being equal. That would give him one of the closest electoral college wins in the history of the presidency and presidential elections. Theoretically, it is possible, but it's hard to see New Hampshire voting to the right of Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania. That hasn't happened all too much in recent history. So I think both of the candidates' pathways honestly revolve around the Rust Belt states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Except it's a little bit flipped in how many they need to win. Trump, realistically, just needs to win one of them. If Trump can just win one of Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania, and he can win Georgia, it at least puts him in play. If Trump can win Arizona and Georgia for sure, if Trump wins these 2 states for sure, then he definitely only needs one. New Hampshire's still red. If Trump can win Arizona and Georgia, he for sure only needs one of the Rust Belt states. For sure. If Trump cannot win Arizona, Trump can still win, but he may be able to win with only Pennsylvania, but he's more likely than not going to need to win 2 out of the Rust Belt states. But that's Trump's easiest pathway to victory. And Kamala Harris's, I've kind of gone over it already. Her path is right through the Rust Belt. Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Everything else being equal from 2020, she wins the presidency. Very, very close. But holding on to New Hampshire, Minnesota, and Virginia, she would win the election. And Trump can win every other swing state. It wouldn't matter. She would still win. So we're going to look for polls over the next few days, especially out of these key battleground states. And we're going to see how things develop. It's definitely a close race and one we're going to see develop very, very quickly in front of our eyes. Definitely going to be one to watch for. So that'll do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you have not yet done so. Thank you so much for watching, and hope to see you in a future video.